Skin maladies, such as boils and murrain, did not cease with the plagues associated with them. The Israelites continued to suffer from various skin afflictions throughout their sojourn in the wilderness. The Lord warned His people as they prepared to cross the Jordan that He would inflict them with the botch of Egypt if they didn't obey His commandments. The Hebrew word translated as botch is the same word translated as boil in the sixth plague. The Lord's description of the promised pestilence is more detailed than the description of the plague and provides a better idea as to the nature of the disease. In addition to boils and blains, the pestilence caused a consumption, fever, inflammation, and extreme burning. Consumption refers to a condition where the body progressively wastes away. It used to be a name for tuberculosis, but this is not what the Mosaic account is referring to. The boils struck at the knees and legs, then eventually covered the body from foot to head. This mirrors the experience of Job, who suffered from boils over his entire body. All these skin diseases were caused by the red dust falling from Mars. The dust was small, as we know from the description of the plague of boils. Much of the dust was a fine powder. This is consistent with the physical properties of Martian dust, which is also very fine. A fine, powdery dust makes a perfect aerosol for long-duration suspension in the atmosphere. Large airborne particles, as would be expected, fall to Earth at a much more rapid pace than smaller particles. And we know that Mars is regularly subject to huge dust storms. These storms can last for months. Some of the storms are so large, they enshroud the entire planet in dust. The dust from the 2001 storm remains suspended in the Martian atmosphere for about 7 months. A similarly sized dust would remain much longer in the thicker atmosphere of Earth. The dust that fell from Mars covered immense tracts of Earth's surface, but the dust did not settle immediately. It took some time to reach the surface. The dust from the global storm of 2001 remained in the Martian atmosphere for months. Given the amount of debris falling on Earth and its thicker atmosphere, it would be reasonable to assume it took years for the air to clear. After all, the ash from Mount Pinatubo took 2 years to settle, and that was a minor event when compared to the Exodus. The prolonged suspension of the toxic dust would have ensured that its effects would continue for years. This would mean that the Israelites, Egyptians, and other inhabitants of the earth would experience skin disorders until the dust had fully settled. Unfortunately, even the complete settling of dust would not resolve the problem. The mammoth amount of dust coating the surface likely became a reservoir for terrestrial dust storms, not unlike the Sahara Desert. The annual dust storms of Mars would be duplicated on Earth. One of the signs that the Lord commanded Moses to use before Pharaoh was a leprous hand. The Hebrew translated as leprous by the King James translators is TSARA and means to be struck with leprosy or to be leprous. Now, most translations use leprosy or leprous for TSARA, but some do not, instead preferring a more general term, such as skin disease. The New Living Translation uses a severe skin disease. The Holman Christian Standard Bible translates TSARA as diseased. The God's Word translation added an additional detail describing the diseased hand as flaky as snow. The translators preferred the texture of snow as the relevant characteristic over the color of snow. It is possible that both characteristics were descriptive of the disease. That some of the translators chose not to use leprous as a translation of the Hebrew TSARA begs an obvious question. Was the disease inflicting Moses' hand leprosy, as most translators believe, or was it something else as other translators believe? And if the disease was not leprosy, then what was it?